The energy of asking for help is the same energy of receiving. If you want to receive more financial abundance, if you want to receive more opportunity, you can't be the girl who has a tight grip of control on how everything goes and being the one to do it all yourself. Take it from the girl who's tried. We are going to dive into some more Q&A and really go deeper into this topic, whatever it is for you, that when we were talking about the decision, right? The decision and following it up with the action. If you could leave here being clear about what that next action is, or being clear about kind of what's that just shift, like we've been talking about with some of these other ladies, that frees you up more to be taking the action that's consistent with the version of you want to become. That's what we want to dive into, because the goal is, for those of you listening in audio or watching on YouTube, for those of you who are here tonight, is to have you click off of this episode or leave here tonight, and now, consistent with the decision you make, start showing up inside that energy. And it really can start with even like how you go to bed tonight. Like, how are you going to set yourself up for the next day that you want to have? It starts in the moment. It doesn't start tomorrow. It doesn't start at some future arbitrary date. You get to start showing up inside of that today, and then ask yourself, what is the next action that version of me would take? So who wants to ask the next question?
Hey there, I'm Mel C. I shared a little bit earlier about the amazing company movement that I have, the book series, empowering women, successful women to share their stories, to empower readers. But my other love is my nonprofit. So I do all of these books in different cities with all these amazing women.
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, ladies, we're going to take you and we're going to bring you into Phoenix next year for this amazing all-day mentorship event where we mentor young women ages 16 to 28. And we offer our expertise to them. So I'm like, yes, we're going to do this because I want to empower young women. Because when I was their age, I was on my own and didn't have a mentor. So I was like, okay, we're going to do this. But now my next question is a little bit of an imposter syndrome of going, okay, I said this. Now I have to do this.
that is the thing.
I have to find a venue. I have to, getting sponsors and doing all the digital marketing is fine. But I think I'm holding myself back right now going, okay, you opened your big mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Put your big girl pants on, find the venue. But I have so much going on with my other businesses that it's trying to find the time in the day of where do I go? Who do I have a problem asking too, like others.
Yeah. But, it's great.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So the question is, how do you overcome this imposter syndrome?
How do I take that leap? And
okay. So what are you going to do tomorrow to find the venue? I don't think this is such a block as it is, but, and I say this because, just sitting here in your presence, you're not an imposter. You're just stepping into this version of you, this expanded version that you haven't been yet. So I bet that the amount of time you spent thinking about all the mental chatter, you could already have a venue booked if we just redirected that energy. So you see how sometimes this is kind of like how it goes. It's like the overthinking. Anyone who overthinks, I definitely do. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced, Mel, but it's just sending the text, sending the email, posting to social media. Hey, I'm looking for a venue with XYZ. Who knows someone? So what is the next thing tomorrow? What does it look like for you to wake up tomorrow or tonight and take the next action step inside of the next step toward this nonprofit idea?
Yeah, definitely. Posting on social media, it's all about the time of having that 5 minutes alone of okay, what do I have to do that's not on the to-do list that has to be taken care of before all of this?
Yeah. So what part of you resists asking for help?
Just probably the way I grew up and was, living on my own and not having anyone there to ask.
Yeah.
And I still find it, challenging to even ask the authors that are in the book. There's 96 of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, help.
Right. You have this whole community of people.
Yeah.
And how do you feel when you get to help someone?
I love it. Don't we all?
So why are you being so stingy and not letting someone else experience that? right?
Okay, stop being stingy.
Yeah. And like, it's easy for me to sit here and oversimplify that, but typically, there are these themes that I notice, especially in the different, in my own entrepreneurial journey, but then the different women that I've had the opportunity to mentor will bump up against these different themes at some point in our journey. And those of us who are used to taking everything on, who don't just like give me a little hand tap if this is you are the one who just handles everything. How many like oldest daughters are in here? Fellow oldest daughters? Yep. You don't trust anyone to do it as well as you. You don't trust anyone in general to show up for you, right? How many of you? Yes. Yes. So it's like at some point, this is going to be the bottleneck to the impact. It's not even that I can hear that you're like attached to this version of success. It's like now you're thinking about your platform in terms of impact. And it's going to require you can hear it. You don't necessarily have the bandwidth to produce this next level of the business at the level you want to. So it's going to require you to become the version that learns to accept help. So I hear that the transformation could happen in approaching this next phase of the business through the lens of knowing it is going to feel like chewing razor blades to ask for help and to allow someone to show up for me and to outsource it and trust for someone to do it in a way that maybe I wouldn't do it, but it's going to be good enough, right? So at every moment, like you can hear how she could go forward and do this next phase of the business in the way that you've created everything else. But I think if you really tune in to what you're saying, you're telling on yourself. Your higher self is like, Lindsay, here's what she needs. It's what could you discover by opening yourself up, because the energy of asking for help is the same energy of receiving. If you want to receive more financial abundance, if you want to receive more opportunity, you can't be the girl who has a tight grip of control on how everything goes and being the one to do it all yourself. Take it from the girl who's tried, right? So I look for opportunities in my life. Where can I practice receiving? I practice it in all different ways. I remember when I went on this tangent. So this is part of it in the bigger conversation we've been having about what's the decision that you're making. So maybe the decision is, I'm committed to this impact that we're going to have. I'm going to do it by opening myself up to support. That's the decision. Now, tomorrow, what that looks like is look for the ways. The universe will always start to be like, did you really mean it? And it can come in the weirdest of ways. I remember when I was really playing this game of looking at where I was so uncomfortable with receiving in all forms. And I started to just notice all these opportunities to receive. One day I pulled into this gas station and I noticed they had a sign that said full service, which growing up in the Midwest, I remember my mom, because she had a car full of kids, she would always pull in and like someone would come out, they would pump the gas, she would pay them. I'd never seen that in Arizona ever. So I pull in, like there's no one around, but I see that they have a full service sign. So I pull onto the full service side of the gas pump and I just like start looking around and I was like, and then no one was coming out. So I was like, well, what did I do? Get out. I was like, well, fine. I guess I'll just pump my own gas. That's what I was going to do anyway. And then I remember being like, no, this is like, if you're really playing this game of learning to receive, you're going to just wait a little bit longer. And sure enough, this adorable little old man comes shuffling out of the building. Now I'm feeling guilty because he's coming out and it's hot and I'm like worried about his well-being, but I just notice everything in me. He comes over, he kind of like yells. He's like, hey, do you need some help? Everything in me wanted to be like, no, sir, go sit down. But I said, yes, I would love some help. Dying on the inside. So he shuffles over to me. Jerry was his name. And, pumps my gas. And I got to like have this beautiful connection and talk. It was his business. He's owned it for like 1,000 years. And just the joy that you could tell it brought him to get to have that connection and to get to offer support. And I got in my car and I remember I texted my therapist at the time because we were just talking about this. And I was like, this was like such a magical little moment. So I share that to say, look for all the opportunities inside this project and out. Because what can start to happen is when we start to bring these patterns to the surface that are blocking us from our next level, you don't just get opportunities to work on them in your business, you'll get opportunities everywhere. So look in your household. Are there things that you could ask for support with? Are there friends who are texting you saying like, hey, what can I do to help you? I started to play this game looking for every single opportunity where there was an offer for support. And I made a deal with myself. I had to say yes. So if someone offered me support, if they said, can I hold the door for you? Can I get that for you? Can I carry that to your car? No matter how much everything in me wanted to reject it, because I don't need that. And it felt like I had to notice all the feelings that came to the surface. It was so eye-opening to hear what I said to myself when I like surrendered to receiving. And the other thing is that if someone said like, hey, what can I do to support you? I had to give them an answer. I couldn't say I'm good. Now, the truth is I am good. I don't need a lot because I am an eldest daughter. But if it was like, hey, your event is coming up, how can I support you? I would say, hey, it would mean a lot if you'd share an Instagram, share this Instagram reel and post the link. It would mean a lot if hey, do you know someone who has a venue? Do you know someone who has a connection to a venue? Start playing the game. Who else in this room knows that like a block that could be a part of your next level is learning to open yourself up to be more receiving? Yes, raise your hand. Okay, I couldn't tell. Some of them were like a wrist flicker. You're like, she's gonna make me do it if I raise my hand. So that's the game to play, is look for the opportunities all around you to practice receiving, because the energy of receiving is the energy of abundance. So if we say we want abundance, and abundance means like an abundance of impact, we don't get to make that impact and also block receiving. So does that resonate with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. The other one that I played with is receiving compliments. Because if there's a struggle with just the energy of receiving in general, if you find yourself kind of deflecting compliments, or we could call it the Midwest way of deflecting compliments, is to compliment them in return and make sure that you double down on that compliment. So to take the attention away from yourself and make sure that they feel more acknowledged than you were. And so when someone would compliment me, all I would allow myself to say is, thank you. I couldn't say, this is the other Midwest thing. If they're like, oh, I love your jacket, you'd be like, it was on sale. I got it on clearance. Or I would point out like, oh, it has a hole right here. Like, that's so weird. Like, you could just say thank you. You don't have to. But do you see how that's like that? The energy of that is a deflection. It's saying, don't pour into me. So these are all opportunities. Like, it's in the small stuff. This is what I say when I talk about making a decision and then showing up consistently inside that decision. So masterclass on receiving, thanks to Jerry at the Sinclair on 40th Street in Camelback. Shout out to Jerry. He will pump your gas if he's still alive, and I really hope he is. Yeah. Thank you, Mel.
Thank you.
Okay, who has the next question?
My name's Savannah. I do e-commerce marketing. I was just gonna ask, like, what's the difference between like having a roadmap and just letting it unfold?
Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit specifically in what area of your life this shows up? That's such a brilliant question.
Well, okay. Well, I bring it up because last night I'm a single mom, and I was thinking about how this is the last year I want to be renting.
Okay.
I want to buy a house in a year. So then I'm supposed to be doing bedtime, and instead I'm pulling up like houses on Zillow that I want to buy, and then I'm calculating the mortgage and how much it's going to cost. I'm like, oh, that's like $5,000 a month. And then I'm like, okay, well, you'd have to make this much income. And I'm like reverse engineering it. And I'm like, okay, that would mean like this much client work and then like this much work. And like, can you sustain that? And how long could you sustain that for?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, no. Like, this isn't the way you're supposed to be doing it. You're supposed to just be like, this is my goal. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I have to let go a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. And that's actually so helpful because we interact with our next level goals in all different ways. Some of us resist doing the work of actually calculating, which keeps the goal feeling far away when it may not be that far away. So you can hear how Savannah did the next action step actually, which is let me look at what this would actually require. How much would it cost? What would it look like for my business right now?
I have a degree in finance.
Okay, perfect. It shows and it's beautiful. I'm like, do you just love spreadsheets as much as I love whiteboards?
It so much.
I know.
I'm addicted to budgeting.
Oh my gosh. And that is so what's so powerful is we want to start to look at where our strengths can sometimes become our Achilles heel, because sometimes when you have a mind that really operates in logic, it can be harder to embrace the belief that whatever the gap is between your financial reality now and the one that has you living in this home you want to live in, it's harder to see the way because the logic is like, but show me the proof right now. And it lives in believing in a future you can't see yet, like leaning into the uncertainty. The opposite could also be true. How many of you in here are really big dreamers, but like you're allergic to spreadsheets? You're allergic to the plan? Okay. So for you, it's always kind of like I've heard so many different mentors and people who I listen to say this, that the opposite is the medicine. So it's allowing ourselves. So for you, I would say, get really allow yourself. I think it's grounding it in both. Speak to the part of your logical mind that's like, you're right. This is outside of our budget right now. You're right. There is a gap between where I'm earning now and where I want to be. You're right. That is taking on a client load that right now I don't totally see how that's going to happen. So we don't want to, I think when we try to override it with just thinking positive, it works against us because these parts of our brains are tied to survival. Like there's probably a lot for you that like you've survived by really being logical, grounded in financial reality, all of it. So we want to honor that part and say, okay, now I want to give you a different job. You're so great. It's like that part of your mind that's really seeking safety and certainty in seeing the numbers. Be like, great, I want you to build me out a spreadsheet. That's kind of like what you already did. Engage that part, but then allow yourself to go a little bit dipping into like the Delulu realm of like, go and look at open houses. Start to allow yourself to feel viscerally, what would it feel like to walk in the door? What would it look like to take what school would I be taking my kids to if I were living in this neighborhood? Pair it with giving your mind something more tangible to connect with. Those of you that are really good at that part, but you've never, done the math to see what it's going to require, I think it's a mix of both. But there's going to be a point in between where you're like, and I don't see it. I can feel it, I can ground into it, but I don't see it. And this is the part, like those of you who are in the upgrade with me, we've been talking about certainty. We have to understand the way that certainty works when we're trying to bring some like upgrade or, if you love just the idea of manifesting, it's all kind of like the same energy. It's understanding that we have to be able to have certainty, ground into certainty in something we can't see yet, but you can feel it. The fact that you have the vision for not wanting to rent, that little intuitive ping means that there is a future that desires you back. So what I do is I equally go back and forth between, okay, I have this vision of what I want to see for the podcast in the future. And so I spend time in the morning. For me is usually really powerful. I can connect with the energy of that. But then I can't just live in the Delulu part of it and just envisioning it all day. Then I have to, by embodying that energy, then it's even like making that decision, right? Saying, I will not be renting by this time next year. But then we were just having this conversation at the break. It's this fine balance between taking the action, surrendering the outcome. Taking the action, surrendering the attachment to the timeline. So you can have the intention and be living into the vision by X date, I'm in a house of my dreams, etc. And I think we have to operate with firm intention of what that looks like, but also let go that it might look different. And that's a very fine line of energy to walk. So how I play with that is if I'm kind of like we were talking about with Vanessa earlier, if I notice I'm trying to be like too cool, calm, collected, like, oh, I don't really need for that to happen next year. Double down, be like, no, with certainty. Like I know myself, my children were meant to be living in this kind of a home. Now, what's the next action I can see to take? But the moment I feel like I'm attached that action, like let's say I'm sending out an email to launch a new offer. And if I feel my energy kind of getting like I'm checking my inbox every 5 seconds to see, then I detach by shifting my focus, like completely shutting that and focusing on something else. So I catch myself when I'm getting a little bit too attached and looking for the signs that it's working, and instead go back to, that's where I dip back into, let me ground into the energy of what it feels like when I'm living that reality. Now what action do I see to take? Take the action, let go of the result. And I feel like it's typically in there, and it's in there. And then always with 100% of the time in my life, the way that it connects with me is way different than I thought. But it's like, I'm starting to realize this about myself too. It's like, we don't get to connect with the random house you never thought to look at that's just pops up on your Instagram unless you're in the action and living toward the reality where you have that thing. And you're taking the action that maybe that action itself isn't what produces the result, but it gets like it's like the universal energetic momentum happening around you that allows the thing to connect with you. So what do you hear for yourself in that?
It's like, stop shutting it off because you don't see exactly how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And like, start exposing yourself to the possibility of it actually happening.
Yeah.
So like when you said go to an open house, I was like, oh, like I am not qualified.
Right? But like, it turns out, because I started to lean into this too. They don't like ask you if you can afford the house.
That's
if you
so
want
true.
to, like,
yeah.
But I realize how much, but do you see how like the version of you that was living into the future where you have a house like that, of course you're going to be going to open houses. So that's perfect. That's so perfect. Ooh, there was a part, wait, go back to say, what did you say the first piece of that? Because there was something else that just popped in.
I said I kind of shut my brain off.
Okay, yes, that part. So here's the other way to override any of us who have, like, I have a very logical, like, show me the facts type of mind. I can dream really big, but I find a lot of certainty in logic and facts. Is I soften it by bringing in more curiosity. So if your mind it's like, you can hear, it's like very black, white, like, oh, I can't do that because I don't see the money in my bank account right now. So you can introduce curiosity by just even bringing more questions in, like, well, what could I do? What would it look like? What ideas have I not thought of yet? What financial assistance programs are available for single moms? So you could reach out. I actually have an amazing mortgage broker to talk to locally if you have some, who's just like very educational and someone who you could say, hey, if my goal in 2 years or in a year is to be able to qualify, what would I want to do right now? So the version of us that believes in the future we're living into would be taking those kind of steps, knowing that we deserve to connect with the right people and information that will get us there faster. So, but when I find that the logic is just really like trying to take control, I'll soften it by asking more questions or just even being like, well, you don't really know. Like, wouldn't it be cool? Like, sure, I get it. I get that I don't see the financial numbers adding up right now, but like, wouldn't it be so cool if we had a house with a pool? Wouldn't it be so cool? And you like, because what we have to realize is that we're always living into an imagined future. The imagined future that you can't afford the house and the imagined future that you can are both made up. And we're actually using the same part of our brain. But one of them, when you allow yourself to imagine the future where you do have it, will start to open up your mind to more ideas, or even just like you sharing that on a podcast or sharing it in a room like this will have people say like, oh, you know who you need to talk to is you need to talk to so-and-so. So just like allowing yourself to be more in the curiosity, be like, yeah, I don't see it. And I just wonder, like, I wonder who could help me. Does that help?
Yeah, because I think before I walked into this room, I was like, you need to let go of that dream. And then I was like, you know what? That dream is really not that crazy.
Not today.
And then I'm like,
you don't need to let go of it. Not here.
Yeah, like all these women, like we all believe that this could happen, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
We're manifesting right now.
Yeah. But and that's, Savannah, I'm like so grateful that you shared that, because there's so many examples in my life where it's sort of like I count myself out because I don't see how it's possible. So I don't even take the actions consistent with, well, let me find out if it even is, right? So like going to an open house or talking to someone who would help you qualify for the mortgage would be actions you'd take if you believed that you could have the outcome. So just keep taking those actions. And like the worst that could happen is you don't move into a house. So you're living the worst case scenario right now.
Which is honestly really great.
Which is really great. So it's like when we start to look at the way that we're interacting with something that we want, or like, especially if we're trying to talk ourselves out of something we really want, like is so normal. Realize that the worst that could happen if you fully lean in and go for it like it could happen is that you would just end up in the exact same place you are. And you'd probably just come up with you would just now know more ways to not qualify for a mortgage on a house than you did today. So you would still be closer to having the thing that you want.
Yes.
Right?
It's
It's
true.
so good. Yeah, that's so good. Thank you so much for
Thank
that
you.
question. Okay, we're going to take one more question. Who wants to ask the last one? I know there was another hand up.
So, hi everyone, I'm Jade. I had a question for you, Lindsay. So, where I struggle with visibility is also just really enjoying being private.
Yeah.
And I don't really like all the pressures of like constantly posting and being visible. So then I try,
Sure.
well, I'm going to just make my own rules and post when I want to, or when
Yeah.
I'm in that energy or season that I do want to share. But then I always go back to, well, for months where like I won't want to post at all. So I was wondering for you, because I feel like you are visible and yet I also feel like you have a good balance too.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? Like being visible and yet at the same time also not wanting to give into the pressures of having to be visible because you have to be visible when you run a business, but also being able to be private too.
So when you say be visible, you're talking specifically the kind of visibility to help grow your business, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Or is it some personal as
to
well?
grow my business.
Yeah. Because that matters first and foremost, especially if you have more of like a business Instagram account, if we're talking about that, versus personal.
Yes. And I don't have a personal Instagram.
Okay,
just
great.
a business Instagram.
Perfect. That's perfect. So that's a great way to keep, if you want to keep your private life more private, absolutely. I love having them separate. I think unless your business is you, it makes sense to maybe combine them into one, but I love having separate because for the most of last year, if you actually look at my Instagram, I really haven't been posting consistently. I have been in my healing era, just over there hiding. But it didn't feel right in that chapter to be visible because I was dealing with things that felt really personal that I just wasn't ready to share yet. Even now, like there's parts of my life that I am keeping private that feel better to keep private. So I think it's just making the clear distinction. What parts, if your social media, is that mainly the platform that we're talking about here in terms of being visible?
Yes.
I thought so. So if your social media is to grow the business, it's getting clear what type of content grows the business and how consistent do you actually need to be? Because I feel like with the type of work you do, you have the type of business where as long as your page is something where if people found their way there, they could clearly see what you do and how to connect with you. I don't necessarily think that you need to constantly be sharing. There you go. There you go. SEO is exactly. What the SEO queen in the audience also said. Exactly. So it's understanding, what are the drivers that are bringing new business in the door? And for some people, social media is just a small piece of that. So it's just not getting caught up in the comparison of other people who tell you need to be posting X number of times a week. It may not be true for you. Yeah. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. And it did pose another question because when you're like, well, what is driving the growth of your business?
Yeah.
And of course, there's the consumer or like the client side of my business. And I do think my Instagram does really great with just attracting clients. But then there's a training part of my business. And that part is interesting because I do feel like as an industry, I probably go against the grain and a lot of things that I think our industry just does because they do it. And I don't necessarily think it's right. So then I started posting about those things like the disrupting content.
Okay.
And then I didn't get the greatest feedback on that. So then it makes me want to pull back and be like, well, F it. I'm not going to post and, all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was like an interesting thing that like piqued when you said, well, what's driving the growth of your business? Because I'm like, oh, well, I didn't want to talk about that, Lindsay. I'm just talking about privacy.
And so has anyone else experienced that? It's like when you start to really step out and share something that is probably also effective in reaching the people you want to reach. If there's a fear underneath it, we're going to be challenged on it. Was it people in the industry that you were kind of speaking against that?
Yes.
Okay. And do you feel like posting that type of content is an effective way to reach and educate the people that you want to reach?
Well, so this is the thing that's kind of where I waver, because I'm like, well, I don't want to feel like I'm a hater. Like, I do love my industry, and I don't want to feel like, oh, this is the only way I can grow is by disrupting content or what I believe is wrong with our industry. Like, I don't want to be a hater.
Sure.
But yeah, at the same time, I'm like, that's not integral either.
Yeah. You don't want to be perceived as a hater.
I don't want to be perceived as a hater.
Yeah.
I want to have a voice, but like, I don't want to be the voice of the hater. Like, I don't want to be the salty, bitter.
I'm like, I like sitting here and being, your energy is like angelic. I'm like, I don't actually know if you could come across as a hater in any universe. And it's probably really uncomfortable when you share something that is your truth and someone says like, no, I don't agree with that. I think that sounds like a great personal development exercise, honestly. And, but I say this just even for the growth for you. So what it's doing, especially those, so who else resonates with that? There's like the thought of getting pushback or getting negative comments, whatever it is something that makes you want to pull back and hide. Yes. Just me and Jade. Okay. There's a couple heads nodding. You will get the opportunity. So what those negative comments, we'll just put that in air quotes, are doing, it's a reflection for you to be like, do you believe this? And the moment you ground into that, I was just having this conversation with a friend who is dealing with this. She's had some content like really go viral, and it's attracted people who now, because they can see it, they weren't seeing her content before. They don't know who she is. They don't know the whole context. They're just taking it at face value, right? So it's triggering someone else because you're basically saying, hey, I don't agree with this in our industry. And what it's doing is it's giving you the opportunity to double down. Do you believe it? Now, whether or not you keep posting that content, or maybe you find a way that feels like really authentic where you can say, I bet you even do. You probably even say it so nicely where you're like, hey, I love our industry and I want us to be better. And here's something that I think, this is why I train in this way, because I think this is in integrity with the best way to serve clients. That's still going to trigger someone who feels called out by your truth. You can't stop that, but it's the medicine for you in that situation is, do you believe in you? And so take those opportunities, like especially when you see a comment that it's kind of prickly and it kind of like brings that feeling up in you. That's the part in us that's saying it's not safe to speak my truth. And it's just an opportunity to sit with that part of you and be like, I really like, was this honest? Was this true for me? Does this help people? Does it serve? Is this in integrity with the person I want to be? If yes, then I stand behind it. And you can just block the haters if you want, you can, or you can delete comments that are, that just aren't supportive. So you don't have to, it's not so much about that you have to post any type of content, but I feel like you have a really strong voice in your industry. And this is probably just an opportunity for you to double down on you believing in that voice. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Such a great question. Okay. Gretchen over here, we're going to give her the last question, the last bonus question. This is what happens also when she's coming to Expanders in a couple of weeks. So Expanders starts now. No, I'm so excited. I don't want to leave your question out of this. Okay. Introduce yourself. Well, but you already have the mic in your hand. Let's just see how it feels.
I am Gretchen. I own an online boutique. I actually live in Texas, but we have a home out here also. So,
what's your boutique called?
Rolling Ranch.
Thank you.
Yes. So, but first of all, I want to say I'm going to apologize for having a cornbread accent. So
why would you apologize for that?
So I noticed like clearly, like you have talked about, like the theme that you have talked about is like, you have to know what you want. You have to be clear to tell the universe what you want. Like you in the back, you have to tell the universe that you want that house. You need to tell the universe that you want to go viral because obviously you do, right? And
Vanessa's like, I guess I fucking do.
Yes. You do want to go viral. Okay.
We all want to go viral.
So I feel like everything that I've ever wanted, we have.
Yeah.
And we came out here 4 years ago. We loaded up the horses. We drove from Texas to Wickenburg, Arizona. We stayed for a week. And when I was there, I said, we're buying a house out here. 4 years later, here we are. We're going to spend the winter in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I get to the point where, and I'm in this point, like the coach that I work with, like that's the thing that we're talking about, is like, you have to be clear about what you want next.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't even comprehend in my head how anything could be better than the life that we live right now. And I don't know what's next.
What if giving yourself permission to just be in however long this season gets to be, of just like enjoying what you've created?
But beating goals is fun.
There it is. I knew we would coax her out of hiding. Yeah, so this is beautiful, right? Because there's nothing wrong with achieving goals. That's why you have the success that you have, right? And it's just something that I think could be interesting to explore, is to notice the discomfort that shows up in just allowing yourself to sit in a little bit of stillness in it.
I feel like I've sat still this whole year. And
Have
I've been
you?
very I have.
You talked about moving horses across country, and so what I mean by stillness is, I'm going to say some other things that again, I'm laughing because I'm like, this is me too, that just shocked and appalled me how uncomfortable these were. Like, do you do anything for fun? Do you have like hobbies?
Yeah, we rope.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to
amazing.
that's why I'm in Arizona. We went to 2. Y'all probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but I went to 2 jackpots just this past week. That's why I moved.
Do you
to
have any
Arizona.
like secret desires, like hobbies that you just like, that would be kind of fun to try?
No.
Yeah. And not that you need them, right? So here's where I'm getting at is, it sounds like there's a part of you that's like, there's a part of your soul that's to this point that you're like, is this really all there is? It's just smashing and achieving goals. I'm good at that. I've done that. And you'll achieve more goals. Like, that's like me. It's like, I would be so bored if I sat for too long, but it's different. It's different than I'm uncomfortable sitting because the achievement is helping me avoid feeling something.
Well, it's almost like when at the mastermind I was at a couple of weeks ago, we talked about like Rolling Ranch being more of like a household name, like the same thing you said, like a household name in the Western industry. Like, cause I like to push females to team rope, like females in team roping. And then, but part of me says, is that just ego? Like, is that ego talking?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Well, why do you want that?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Is it ego? Is it because, is it something inside of me that I just need for everybody to see that I'm successful and we're at this like ginormous level? Or is it something that I really want?
And only you will know that, but that answer will come in stillness. It would even be interesting just to experiment with, like, what does stillness bring up in you? Does it, because the voice of, like, when my ego is the one talking, it sounds like I need other people to see XYZ, or am I irrelevant? Yeah, so that just means that it's attached to not my authentic expression for myself. It's tied, or at least commingled into how it appears to other people, which is fine. That's like so natural and human. But I think that true fulfillment and happiness does come from our authenticity, which you are. Like, that's what is so beautiful about your accent. It even just like is so authentic to the brand you've built and who you are. I think, again, if we lean into that, the opposite is the medicine. For those of us that really get a lot of validation from doing, and our identity is really rooted in doing, a season of not doing just could be, a period of time. Look it up. She is shocked. I think just reveals elements to us that, if we're not careful, we just could end up, 10 years from now realizing that you built a business and a life that has you not actually enjoying it. And I think there's probably like a lot that you do enjoy, but I'm curious about what you think will happen, or what will be uncomfortable with sitting with yourself. Like, do you really know you? And I know for myself, that was, I was achieving a lot because I didn't really want to look deeply at myself. There was a lot of insecurity under there that I didn't even realize the extent of until my marriage fell apart. And there were some other things that kind of like forced me to this moment where I had to stop, because I don't know that I would have stopped otherwise. So like, I never want that to have, like, I don't ever want someone to be forced to slow down and to stop. But often, like, when we don't see a vision out in the future, like really clearly, you could make one up, but I think you can even feel that the energy of that would just be kind of coming from this place of more of the same. I'm just curious, like what would happen if you just spent the next 6 months doing what you're doing? You can even be growing the business, but try something like do a solo trip, do something like by yourself, go try something that challenges you, stretches you out of your comfort zone, out of the norm of like the things that you love. It's like as women, I just think that there's not a lot of talk about that journey to connect with ourselves. It's all about what we're doing for others. It's our businesses, it's our families. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing I've realized is my relationship with me is the most valuable thing. And that's easy for me to say because I'm not a mother. I'm not a wife anymore. Like my life doesn't revolve around other people who need me. But it's given me this interesting perspective to see how much my whole identity was built on who I was for other people. That the most uncomfortable thing about this season is just allowing my life and my identity to be focused on getting to know me. And then now whatever success I create on the other side of that is coming from just a different place. That's kind of where it actually scared me a little bit because once I got still, I was like, I don't know if I'm ambitious. Like I really didn't know if I was because I was like, this is kind of nice. And I was like, oh, I gotta pay bills. I gotta pay my bills now. So, but it's been powerful because the things that I'm building now aren't built on the avoidance of what is trying to get my attention on the inside. And it doesn't have to be anything all that big or significant. It's just like how long ago did you start building your business?
9 years ago.
9 years ago. So even like who you were then and who you are now is such a different person, you know? I don't know. I just feel like there's something in that for you that you're just going to discover. And then like it could be, you could connect with, who knows, like you could connect with a bigger philanthropic idea that your whole business now takes on more purpose, deeper purpose than it already has. But we don't get new ideas when we're continuing to do more of the same and always in motion. And the busier our life gets, the bigger our business gets, the less we often have that margin to really just sit. And when I say stillness, it could be driving in the car without listening to a podcast or listening to music, or, going on a solo trip if you have the means and like if you're fortunate enough to be able to do that. But it could be just taking yourself to lunch. Like I started to do really uncomfortable things, like going to eat by myself and not looking at my phone the whole time and just notice like, wow, it's hard for me to just be with me. And I discovered so much about myself in that process. Does any of that sound terrible to you? Which probably means that does any of that speak to you?
Well, I think when you were talking about the giving, like we were able to we actually gave like a $40,000 like gift
amazing.
This year to a children's thing. And like
It's
that,
incredible.
that felt good. And I think maybe kind of moving into that.
Sure.
That, I don't know.
And that's the thing. Just let it be okay that for a time, doesn't have to be a long time, it's okay to just not know. Like, just be like, Gretchen, it's cool to just rest, girl. Look at her face. She's cringing. Yeah. And I would get really curious about why. Like, what does it mean? Like, I would sit and journal I would ask myself this, like, what does it mean about me if I just pull back and literally no one remembers who I am? Like, what then? Like, who am I? If I'm not a wife, if I'm not a business owner, like, who is Lindsay? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm like, I'll see you in a couple of weeks in November. Well, and that could be, so would you be willing to take that on between now and when I see you at Expanders? Yeah. Just play with it again. And with the goal to, I think those of us who have very achievement oriented minds, attach it to a goal. Be like, my new goal is to have more fun, to create more time to pour back into me, to get to know myself in this current season.
It is fourth quarter though.
That is true. That is true. Look at, she's like, not now. I'm going to schedule this. I mean, that's true, right? But do you have a team and do you have like a lot of things in place already? Do you know what you need to do? So you could find like 5 minutes in there to be still? Okay. Thank you so much for that question. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. This really was. I don't know why this was like such a growth edge for me to just do one of these solo. I oddly enough feel so much more comfortable the bigger the audience is, the more intimate audiences are uncomfortable in a different way. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for just being a part of the Powerhouse Women universe. Even if like tonight is your very first time hearing about this podcast, it just like is not lost on me that a few years ago, this was all the seed of a tiny idea. And now there are people all around the world who listen to this podcast and who want to show up on a Wednesday night. So thank you so much. Thanks for really going there with me. And we want to take these live podcasts on the road in 2026. So we want to take it to more cities. We want to connect in real life with the community. So stay tuned for more. And those of you who are listening in the audio version of this, stay tuned because we might bring it to a city near you very soon. All right. Thanks, everybody. Yay.